Really touchy. All right, sorry everyone. I had a really funny, cute thing written, but Verizon decided to be stupid and tell me I had low network connection. So it's just me today. Oh,
I don't
wait,
think. Oh,
JK, there's Wayne.
This won't.
You're getting
hold my phone
a
anymore.
belly shot
It
of
won't.
Wayne
Why?
right now.
I got it.
What am I doing? What's happening?
You're like a belly shot in my
Ooh.
phone. Look
I'm
at
sucking.
my
Where is it?
Right there.
Oh!
Right
I didn't know where it was.
All right.
All right.
So what's everyone doing? How's everyone? What does anybody want to talk about today? I just got a notification Wayne Henry is live.
Oh, I was like, how do I watch the video?
I don't think we're actually watching pizza in the background. Amanda and I wanted to watch pizza on the TV
They're making
screen.
pizza.
But it's just some dudes talking.
No, they're making pizza. Look, he's making
Making
dough.
pizza.
Look, you can see he's making dough.
Oh, I gotta adjust my camera because we're all a little left
Ooh, you're crooked.
of center.
Someone's crooked.
That's funny. Oh, thank you.
Oh, look at that. It's not good. Verizon.
Yeesh.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my god.
Wow. I am so sorry
You
for
turn
all of you
Wi-Fi
watching this.
Oh, my.
I have Wi-Fi off too. That is ugly.
I haven't been. It feels like a while since I've been here. It's been like 2 weeks.
Look at, I see what you're seeing, which is a whole lot of distortion.
That's how mine
That's
was.
freaking me out.
What do
Oh
we
my
do
gosh,
about that?
so I got a new phone and my camera is so much better.
You got a new phone?
I got the iPhone 8.
Maybe I should try again.
Maybe you should get an iPhone 8.
Here,
Why,
quit-
Android?
Maybe it's just on there. Quit Facebook and go back. Now go back. Open it again.
Hey, so if anybody's watching, are you seeing like normal screen or is it all distorted? Because IDK.
Panic.
Oh,
See?
it's
I
all
think
right.
it was just on there.
Maybe if it comes up even. We'll see.
We'll see. I think it was just on there.
Let me adjust just a wee bit.
So today's kind of the Seinfeld episode about nothing.
Yeah.
Which we do frequently.
Yeah.
Once in a while. Once in a while we just feel like winging it and
And so
having
we're
fun.
gonna we're gonna wing it and have a little bit of fun today.
Yeah, so we're talking about odd questions or just, I guess, questions that we
Yeah.
get from home buyers and sellers.
Like, what's one you get? Like, what's a weirdly common odd question? I don't know. Like, you know, I get all kinds of things, but usually people say like, this is a dumb question, but in the end, it's like, oh, it's probably not the
I
dumbest.
never
question,
feel
but-
like there's dumb questions because I'm learning constantly.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes there are dumb questions.
There
Just
are.
kidding.
We won't tell you though.
No.
Well,
Sometimes
maybe I
there's
will.
weird
Depends on how
questions.
well I know you.
I don't think dumb.
Yeah.
I think weird. Or,
Yeah.
but it's, like I said, that usually for me is a learning experience because it'll be something completely off the wall that I'll be like, how did you even come up with that? And
Right.
then it is something like legitimate that I probably.
Well, then you think
A
about
real
it, and you're
estate
like, well, I
agent
guess
should
I
know.
never really thought
Yeah.
about that. Like, yeah.
So I guess the questions that I get a lot are, I send out timelines to every single one of my clients,
Uh-huh.
and I don't think that any of my clients read the timelines.
Thank you.
So
Preach.
it's not an odd question, but the same question that I get
Hey,
is,
Brent, hey,
when is this
Kelly.
due?
If
And
Rebecca's
so-
watching, I'm not aiming this at you, but she just said this 2 days ago.
And so, but maybe what I think is that maybe they don't understand what the timeline means. So maybe they don't.
Legit. Well, because I think it's a matter of sometimes we're so in this life every day,
Right.
day in, day out, hour, minute, everything. We're so used to things that we forget that
Well, and
other
honestly,
people
when-
don't live the real
Right.
estate life.
Well, when they ask that question, I have to go back and do the same thing that they would do.
Mhm.
Look at the document. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like,
Right.
why did I send this to you?
Right. That's the thing. I probably shouldn't send it to anybody
Right.
because I should just keep it for myself.
Now, I will tell
Well, I do.
Right. I just answer their question every time.
you. So in our CRM, which the three of us use the same one, I actually have gone in and created a template with the dates. And so I go in and I had created custom fields for like the deadline dates. And then I start the drip campaign once the transaction starts, and it says in 2 days your inspection period expires. In 2 days, your
Oh, that's
inventory.
nice.
You should share that with the brokerage.
I thought I
That
did.
is
but,
nice.
but I'll reshare.
Maybe.
So it's like I
Hey,
just
Ryan.
created custom fields in there, and then it sends out emails, and it says this is automatically generated. So if we've already addressed this, please ignore. Like,
I love that.
so then it just gives them automatically, what's coming. Now they still ask the questions.
Right. Right. But it is a good idea.
I know. I had a virtual assistant app I was using too that was doing that, and then people were like, "Can you stop that? It's sending us too many emails, like way too much." And I'm like, "Well, more is better than none." Right?
It actually worked. I've done it with my last 2 clients, and it worked pretty well.
Did it?
Yeah. I mean, and they were question askers, and I felt
Yeah.
like it
Yeah.
helped.
I just
eliminate some-
answer and move on.
It just makes it easier for everybody, but yeah. So the other things I get are typically about the house. It's like you're walking through, and
Right. That's what I say. A fun question. Who lives here?
why are they leaving?
Why are they selling?
And my response to that is usually, I don't know, but in my head I'm thinking it's none of our business.
Well, I kind of.
And I think the point of why they ask the questions, they want to know, are they moving because this house is about to collapse? And my thought is A, you get a disclosure,
Yeah.
and B, if that's why they're moving and they haven't put that into disclosure, what makes you think they're going to tell you now? Like,
When Mike and I were first looking at houses, this is back in Illinois, very first house. And we did a showing and the sellers were there. And I did ask them, I said, "Why are you moving? Like, why are you selling?" And it got real awkward real quick and they said, "We're getting divorced."
see, and
And
that's
I was
just
like,
it, right? I don't want to
oh,
ask
well,
the
that's
question
not
for the fear of
what I
that
meant.
answer.
Yeah.
You can usually tell by the closets. So
I don't remember. But
Yeah, I mean,
if there's
but
only like male clothes or female clothes in the closet and like half of it's empty.
there's so many answers that could come from that just makes it, someone
Yeah.
died, and then
Yeah.
that's just awkward, right?
Yeah.
So I generally steer people away from not making me ask that question, in a nice way, because in the end, what are we going to do with the information, right?
I don't know.
Now, I will tell you, if you haven't offered yet and you find out the answer to that, and the answer is the agent tells you they're getting divorced, I guess that does give you some leverage. If they're getting divorced, they probably have to sell, and they probably have, but in this market,
I always try to come at it from an experience. Like, what would I do with that information if I was
Right.
what would make a difference to me? And I just
I
don't
don't know what would make a difference.
What
But
would,
that is
so what
probably
would make
the
a
most
difference to
common
you?
question.
What answer to that question? Why is someone selling? Would it prevent
It's
you
built on
from
a
buying
Indian grave ground, or graveyard, or
So,
something.
well, I
that
think that's
brings into
legit.
another question. Are there ghosts in the house?
I think you'd feel it if there were. I have a very sensitive meter with that. I get the heebie-jeebies in houses, and I'm just saying this is a really fun story. When I was in college, we did live in a haunted apartment.
I love that.
No, it was demon possessed. It was bad. It was
Like
scary.
the Blair, or what was that movie where
The
they
Exorcist.
set up the cameras? It was a more recent movie.
Oh, no, yeah. Oh,
That movie
no,
freaked
that
me
freaked me.
out.
So Jake and I like to watch scary movies. That's my son, and we watched that one, and we turned it off because we both got so freaked out. It was like late at night, and we turned it off, and they were like, "Oh, we can't be, scared like this. We gotta watch it." We were 5 minutes from the end.
That
And then
Blair
we-
Witch Project, those two
Blair
both
Witch
freaked me
Project
out.
freaked me out.
Because they're so realistic.
Oh, they were
The
so
filming was very
scary.
good. See, look at the pizza now. That's a lot.
That's
of
not.
dough.
That's just dough. I want to see
It's
the
coming.
pizza.
It's 28 minutes. It'll be a pizza. This
It'll
is
be a
going to be the
pizza
world's
before we're
biggest
done.
pizza. That's for one pizza.
I could eat that pizza.
Oh yeah, I'm hungry. That's why we're watching this.
Yeah.
We're all hungry.
Hungry for pizza.
Yeah. Um,
So,
So-
I was looking at some other questions, and they were. Well, one of them was, how do you keep alligators from coming up into the toilet?
oh, that's a funny story too.
So snakes. I would
Snakes.
Go in the toilet.
So I have a friend that moved to Australia, and he posted on Facebook. I think I sent this to you. He went into their laundry room, which obviously snakes are very prevalent in Australia. It's like the highest population of poisonous snakes in the world.
Ay, yuck.
So went into the laundry room, and this massive snake is slithering around up the wall, behind the clothes washer, what do you call it, washing machine. So I have another way. So, but yeah, so obviously the freak out. Oh my God, like, you know, I would freak out to the 10th degree. Well, so they have snake catchers or snake people in Australia because it's so it's common. It's fairly common. So they called. Before they could get there, the thing disappeared into the walls. And the guy came and he said, it'll go up in the attic, eat some mice, and it'll eventually go away. Yeah, moving back to the States. I'm done.
No,
We're
so out of there.
First plane back to the United States, I'm on my way. Like, no. We had little snakes at my old house, and Sean ran over one with his car. It grossed me out. He didn't mean to.
I don't like any of that stuff. Kadra just said, if only I can make a meme of Jenny's face just now. Ha ha ha. It was I listening about the snakes.
I might do that.
Well,
I'm going to do that. I'm going to go back and make one of those.
Screenshot it and then make one. I don't even want to see it.
So I had a strange request from a seller one time. Well, I had the buyers, but we were writing the contract on the house, and they made us put into the contract that when the flowers bloomed, the sellers could come back to the house and dig them up and take them.
I had that with my house that I bought. They had a rose bush that they had removed. They had from, no, I didn't ask it. The sellers asked us, they just asked if it was okay. They had a rose bush that they've had at every house they ever lived in.
Yeah.
And so they just transplanted it each time they've moved, which I kind of thought was a kind of a cool thing. Like, it's like a little consistency.
Well, the house that we sold, I had plants from my grandmother's garden that had been given to me, and she had passed away years before I even got married. But I had raspberry bushes in our backyard from her garden, and I was this close to asking.
Oh, you should.
I should have. I never did. And I know they just ripped them out and like got rid of them, and it just makes me sad.
Don't stop thinking about that.
There's meaning behind those plants, Amanda. It's not a weird question.
You know what though? I remember from the real estate exam, this was a question on the one of the sample tests, and it said like buyer A or seller A has a prize-winning rose bush growing in the backyard. Is seller entitled to take that with them? And honestly, I don't remember what the answer was.
Isn't that the same as attached?
It's attached to the
It's
property.
attached, and I think it's a fixture at the property at that point since it's in the ground.
You can
but
ask.
I think if the buyer and seller agree, then that's a different.
I would think typically it would not be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, not always the case. In real estate, a lot of times people are not very rational. But when it comes to being nice to one another, if we're all just kind and considerate, I think the average person's not going to care if you take them. If you ask in advance, if you take a rose bush or something.
Well, if there's something you want, be clear about it. I mean, I had a transaction where the sellers were adamant that the driftwood in the backyard was not staying. It was so meaningful to them, and it wasn't even anything like we had asked for. Like, who can, whatever.
Well, I mean, they were at least clear about it.
clear that that was not staying. So, yeah, you can certainly, if there's something you want.
This pizza thing is pretty mesmerizing, I'm not going to lie.
I am a huge pizza fan. I gotta be honest. Like, I
This guy is really working hard on this.
Can you imagine how strong his arms must be working that dough? That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of dough.
How many pizzas do you think that makes?
10? I don't know. A lot.
One.
One big one?
Really big pizza. Which I've been working in Westgate on this renovation house that we're working on. And Josie's Pizza is like a hilltop kind of pizza. I had it yesterday for the first time.
Good.
Oh my god. We lived in Westgate for 10 years and we had that pizza a lot. And it was, I ordered it yesterday just because I had to have it. Like, it was so
Had to
good.
have that Josie's Pizza.
So good. Josie's Pizza in the hilltop if you're ever over there. So what else?
Sure.
What else? What are these other questions?
What's another question?
Would you walk our two dogs while we're on vacation?
I've done that.
You've done that for clients?
Yeah.
I would offer.
I didn't do it while they were on vacation. I did it for showings. Like
I've offered to do that, to take
she
your
was a
dog
medical
out.
I go
student
play with your
and
puppy.
showings during the day. She couldn't get there, and her dog, sweet dog, but boy was he huge and a jumper. Like, so, and man, he took all your energy to walk that dog, like, cause he's so strong. He was a chocolate lab.
Well, yeah, some people don't know if they should take their dogs out for showings, because I had clients that would just leave their dog loose, and it was a big dog, and
Yeah.
then
I'd get worried
people-
they'd
My
get
dogs
out.
would have been fine, I think, but like
Oh,
you just
Marty,
don't
not
know.
But you don't know who has
Marty.
allergies, who's scared of dogs.
Wow.
You have no
They,
idea.
at least if you're gonna leave them,
Anger
should be
rib-
crated. Like,
Yeah,
I
they
believe.
didn't crate them or anything. Like, they just graded them out the door. They're like, we were really scared by that.
And
Well,
did
you
they
know-
leave? Well, I would. Yeah.
They
I-
did end up leaving.
I know you have a pit bull, and I love pit bulls on video, but in person they do
Yeah.
kind of intimidate me a bit. I gotta be honest. And I went to a house that, okay, to be fair, the agent did give me a warning via email that there was going to be a dog in the garage. I didn't read the email. And so we went out to check the garage. I opened the door, and this dog came out of the garage. It was loose in the garage. So I grabbed her and swung her back around and threw her back in the garage. But there was a dog barking, and you just don't know with dogs. I mean, it could be any dog, but it was just
Right.
this extra
Even
level.
the
'cause there were
sweetest
little
looking
kids
faced
there.
dog can bite you. Like,
Yeah, those little
Right.
white
Any
ones.
dog can bite you, so.
Yeah.
Nasty thing.
Well, you know, I posted the picture of Marty a long time ago, jumped up on the fence.
Yeah.
And I had a friend that said, because I said something, I mean, I didn't mean to be snarky, but like there are some people, most people walk by, smile, laugh,
Yes.
whatever,
Yeah.
or stop and pet him.
Mhm.
But like 1 out of 10 people will just not even look
Mhm.
like at him, which
That
I'm
makes
like,
Marty
those people,
sad.
like, I feel like they should just lighten up a little.
They're
Like
mean.
he makes people smile, you know, and it's like, man, those people seem like they need a smile, right? Like, and if he doesn't do it, I don't know what will. Like, so I made that comment on Facebook. Well, one of my friends is like, I've been bitten by a dog, and dogs bite now. Even as sweet as Marty looks,
They do. He-
there are golden
You don't
retrievers
know.
that
Still a
will bite.
dog.
Like,
I mean, it's just you never know.
You don't
Even-
know.
And that was the thing with our dogs too. I mean, they were the sweetest. I mean, sweet, but they're still a dog. You just don't know. And my kids are climbing on. I don't know. You just don't know.
well, especially kids, because like kids are
They can be
unpredictable,
hard
and
on
dogs
a
are
dog.
unpredictable. Like, yeah. Anyways, what other things you got there?
Well, one that I can think of is I've had buyers ask if the sellers will, paint the house,
I
After
had
the
that
contract?
too once.
do cosmetic updates
Oh, like in your
before they
remedy?
write a contract.
Yeah, they were gonna ask in the remedy, and
Yeah.
and I was like, well, what if they pick a color you don't like? What if they do a really cruddy job on purpose?
Well, they wanted to pick a color and do all that. No.
So,
They
well,
just-
Yeah, I think you
Well,
just
I
need
think
to pick
there's
yourself.
2 things there. I think there's 2 different answers and 2 different scenarios there.
Look at that dog.
When you're writing the contract, I think it's not common to ask for that.
Right.
And it's a little uncomfortable making us ask that. Having that been said, I mean, I guess if the buyer and seller agree prior to a contract, then sure.
I
you know,
mean,
like it is
In
what
this
it is.
market, though, I don't think
No,
that's really
Well,
it's
then-
not going to help you. No, it's certainly it's
Fact
going
of the
to.
matter is, if you want us to ask, we'll ask. I mean, we have to represent
Right.
what our buyer wants, but
But you have to listen to us, and
Looking-
to your point
right.
is that this isn't going to help you get
looking
your offer.
for
accepted.
new countertops or paint and things like that.
Now, if this is a house that's lingered on the market, which isn't common right now either, it's another
But
scenario.
wouldn't you
But
just suggest to your client,
do it
hey,
yourself. Like,
let's offer less, and this is the reason why.
Mhm. That's exactly what I would do. I've never asked for that. Now, could you? Sure.
You could.
mine was
Now, in the remedy,
yeah, that was going to be in
that's
the
a whole
remedy.
other thing,
Yeah.
and that is a big no, because that's cosmetic, and it says it's not. Now, if I don't know, maybe the exterior of the house is rusting or something because it hasn't been. That may be one thing because it's not functioning as designed.
So why don't we go there? I'm sorry.
Let's
I have
go
a
there.
question.
Well, no,
I
what
have a
I'm
question
saying
too for
Okay, this-
thoughts
this-
thoughts
okay.
on asking for credits towards closing.
Mhm.
So it kind of goes in towards the.
Well, what I was going to say, what do you guys feel is reasonable to ask for on a
Yeah.
request to remedy?
About
like what?
paint or cosmetic
anything. I mean,
Look.
what? When a
Material
material
defects.
Things that are not
what's a material defect?
Anything
It is
that
someone
what-
doesn't
has the
know.
structure or livability of
something
the house.
that's not functioning as it's designed.
Yeah.
Functioning, so there has to be a function to what is
Right.
they're asking for. I feel, we got into this a little bit about like caulk and shower before. I had a client that wanted to ask them to re-caulk the shower. dude, go buy a $5 tube of caulk and a caulk gun. Like, you know, I just don't feel like that's a reasonable ask of a seller. To me, it needs to be legit stuff, right? You know, and you know, you just had one where they said we're not going to ask, especially in this market, because they probably have a backup offer. If you're going to be unreasonable in your request, they're going to be like, well, you know what? We had 5 other offers at this point. We're not doing anything, like, or we're not doing that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like it should be something of substance. You know, something that you can't just do for $5 or $10.
So
like,
when a buyer's having an inspection done and the inspector is pointing out all these things that, you know,
every house is gonna have
any inspector that may or may not be watching, I mean, what do you think is reasonable for the buyer to ask? I suppose is the question to ask, because
plumbing,
you're listing all this
HVAC,
stuff.
appliances.
I think a lot of them are letting just people know some things that they should do down the line.
And a lot of
I
reports
think-
I've seen have said like immediate
Right.
cause for concern,
Yeah.
stuff to watch,
Right.
and just regular maintenance. Like,
They did not make a pizza.
oh, is it over?
So,
Yeah.
I have a question from
Well,
Ryan.
that's-
Thoughts on asking
They
for
just made
credit
dough.
towards closing? So, my thoughts on this, it just depends on the house.
And what the work is. Like I had a client that had the electric panel was buzzing and there were some double tap breakers and it was all electrical stuff. And so I mean, obviously it's a safety issue.
Mm-hmm.
You can have, and we can put in the remedy
Mhm.
request that the seller hires a licensed electrician to
Yeah.
fix this.
Yeah.
Just because they're licensed doesn't mean necessarily they're reputable or good at their job. And it doesn't even necessarily imply that, I don't think. But sometimes there's something to be said for knowing, now they're making pizza.
Now they're making pizza.
But something's to be said for knowing who did it,
Mhm.
right? And knowing you chose the person and not someone else.
Right.
So this credit thing,
Mm-hmm.
that's what we did, is we asked for.
Right, a credit towards your closing
Yeah.
costs rather
Because then
than-
they got to pick and they knew what work was done, they knew
So
who
I
did
don't
it,
know,
and
I
they
think
felt
that's
I
better.
right.
guess I don't know
Yeah.
if he means for the request a remedy or when writing a contract, do you ask for credits?
Look, okay, so when you're writing a contract, let's talk about that. When you're writing a contract and you see something that's wrong, or you see something you don't like, then now's the time to ask, I feel like. Because if you see it, it's open and it's obvious, and you write the contract, then when you get to the remedy, like, okay, so I had a buyer who had, and this is maybe, it's unusual, but so they built a garage, but they didn't pour concrete on the floor in the garage. It was gravel.
Dirt? Oh,
Gravel.
Interesting.
So the entrance, the garage door, so when the garage door was closed, you could see the light outside, rodents, bugs, whatever could get in because there was a gap.
Mhm.
Well, we wrote the offer. Of course, this is one time in a million that like I didn't do the showing, we write the
Right.
offer. Another agent did it, the showing, and we write the offer. And then when it comes to the remedy, the inspector brings up the gravel and the fact that these things can happen. Rodents, water, whatever.
Sure.
Well, it was like that when you made the offer. You know, so it's like,
Right.
and that's very open and obvious. So it's like you're offering on the house in the condition that it is at that moment, and it's functioning the way. So can you ask for that in a remedy? You know, the inspector
You
said.
can.
So
You can
we
ask.
did.
You can
Anything.
ask for whatever you
You
want.
can ask.
That's what we decided. Amanda and I talked about that yesterday. Ask for.
We can ask, but the question, the
Right.
answer
I
would be
think
seller
whether you
doesn't
want.
have-
I
say yes
honestly
to
think
anything.
though, what we're running into now is it's a seller's market. When you ask for too many items,
Mhm.
it's gonna throw the sellers off and they may get angry and not do any of them.
Well, and so I just had this conversation with an agent yesterday. This is good conversation. I'm glad we're having this. I'm not.
It's a good show to talk about nothing.
Yes. And so,
Talking
well, I
about
mean,
something.
enough. Something comes out of
Yeah.
nothing.
Oh yeah, that's it.
So, so I had an agent call yesterday, and right after they wrote an offer on a house, and the offer was accepted, the seller got another offer for $10,000 more than they were offered. So, but they're already in contract.
Mhm.
Our agent is in contract, and now the seller, the agent's buying, you know, that they're buying from, has another offer 10,000 more.
Right.
So we've talked about this before.
Yes.
Don't miss a date.
Right.
Don't do anything to give them an out in the contract, you know, blah, blah, blah. Well, he asked about the remedy.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, so if we ask for a remedy, that doesn't mean the seller can terminate because we ask for it. As long as before the end of the remedy period, if we say we're satisfied, everything's okay, right? And that is true. The seller has very few outs in a contract. The buyer has way more outs in a contract than a seller does.
Yeah.
Unless you miss a date. So in that instance, yes, asking, there's no harm, no foul.
Right.
Answer very well maybe no, because in this market, again, they had like 5 other offers. We'll just go to the next one. Like, so that, as we've said 100 times before, I think the answer to a lot of these questions is, well, maybe, or
It just
in this
depends.
instance,
Yeah. It really does depend. I think asking for closing costs when you write a contract is almost impossible now in this market.
Unless you go over,
Even
Yeah,
if you go
adjust
over,
for
I
the
still think it's
financing.
impossible.
or if you're not going to waive
Because I think
appraisal.
exactly. I think the problem is that most people don't know. When you ask for closing costs, you raise the price of the house, and if it doesn't appraise, then these people, then
It
you
does-
have a way to.
yeah.
Not
You're going to have to
be
reduce
paid.
the price or pay
Exactly.
cash.
And so I think some appraisers take that into account, but those are items that you have to deal with. And so asking for closing costs, I think even in a non-competitive,
I agree.
even if it's been on the market for a little while, is hard to even do now.
And I've had people even who have the cash to pay the closing costs.
They
You
still
know,
ask
this
for
is
it.
this is not a weird question, but along the lines of our topic, is I get a question from people. Well, can I get the seller to pay? Let's say they're paying 20%, so they've got cash. And they're
Someone always calling me.
that's someone selling something.
That number
Service.
decline.
And so, but I have that question all the time. Okay, well, can I just get the seller to pay my closing costs? Well, if you have the money to pay your closing costs, pay them. In this market.
It's always, I wish that you could, like back in the day, just roll the closing costs into the loan again.
Well,
that
I
was.
see their point because a lot of times people want to do this or that to the house, and instead of tying the cash up, finance the closing costs, use your cash to do what you want in the house.
Right.
But in this, to Amanda's point,
You can't. It's just people are not.
you're
and-
weakening your position.
Haven't understood. I mean, it used to be back when the market crashed, sellers did that as an incentive for someone to buy their home, and
Yeah.
then it just became commonplace to ask for it. But now,
Yeah, I mean,
no.
you would see that, and then also
Right.
a seller to pay $2,500 towards buyer's
That's
closing.
not something the seller has to do, and I don't know that. And this is sometimes a struggle with lenders too, and because lenders are saying they have to ask for it or ask for this much, and
If you have to have it, that's one thing. Like,
certainly, and then we
Right,
work
and you
that,
fight
and
for
then you
it,
do
but-
find a way, or you are patient until
and
there
it's
is
not
a
to
seller.
it's not to
that-
say that you
yeah,
can't and
right.
that it won't happen. I've had it happen.
Yeah.
Well, and to understand buyers that money is coming out of the seller's pocket. I mean, they're paying for your closing costs,
Right.
just the
It
same
all
as you
comes down
could
to a
be
net.
paying
Yep.
for your closing costs. It's not something that is, I mean, it's all on paper, credit
Right.
here, credit there, but it's money that they
Yeah.
could have had.
And I tell buyers in that situation, the sellers are going for a net, right?
Mhm.
So that's what we've got to consider the
Yeah.
appraisal issue if we think it might be a problem, which it can
Right.
always be a problem.
Prices
And
are
B,
tricky.
is a net, and the banks I think look at it differently.
Yeah.
If you're dealing with the bank-owned property,
Yeah.
I think banks almost exclusively look at the bottom line.
Mhm.
Like to them, cash doesn't seem to matter too much.
Right.
It's what's going to give me the most money when we get to closing. And sometimes I tell my sellers that
Yeah.
cash isn't always
Yeah.
cash isn't always king, as people say.
In this kind of market too, I have found cash doesn't mean anything anymore.
And we had the
Really,
CD and we
it's-
talked about. I think
yeah.
cash means a lot more in a $150,000 deal than it does in a $300,000
Not
deal.
necessarily.
It should.
People are waiving
So,
appraisals
do we
and
have
bringing-
time for one more question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Bring it.
So, speaking of outs, what are some that you have put in contracts that were unusual beside finance and inspection?
What do you mean outs?
Like where they
So
get
I
out of
think
the contract.
how you can get out of the contract, which I don't know that
You
we-
can't.
I don't think that
There's loopholes
Right.
in the contract, which
there are. So you have your appraisal, as long as it doesn't come back okay, and then you have finance and inspection. But there's really, unless we don't hit a date,
dates are the biggest thing.
um,
And I tell you, and
finance.
I've seen instances where, and a lot of times in this market, because people are so hurried to make a decision,
Mhm.
you've got to now, you know, because someone else is going to take it now if you don't.
Right.
So I do find it to be more common. People are getting out of contracts. You know,
Yeah.
things are coming back on the market more often
Right.
than normal.
They are.
Remorse
and a lot of it,
and,
I think,
you know,
is because of finance. I see a lot of them because of finance.
Well, finance and, you know, the number, you know, I tell every buyer and every seller, there's a number of hurdles we got to get through in the course of a real estate transaction. First, you got to get a contract. B, you got to get through inspection. C, you've got to get through appraisal. D, financing, and then you got to get clear to close and get to the closing table.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the biggest 5 things in my mind to get there.
I guess.
Now, there are dates
Yeah.
in the contract, you know, and I think an attorney, and which none of us are, if you hire an attorney that's going to help you get out of a contract, they're going to go through that contract and they're going to look at every term and they're going to look, did both parties meet obligations here and was there an out?
I know in New Albany you can get out if you don't put the community development charge into the contract.
See, and the funny thing about the community development charge, and that's a whole other thing, how the hell do you know where they, I don't even know how you find the community development charge.
It's
Do
only
you?
in New Albany.
But is it really only in New Albany?
I think there's one other place, but I can't remember where it is. Do you guys
see,
know?
I don't know. Like,
I know that it's in
but
New
where
Albany.
do you find it? How do you know? Like, anyways, but like,
I just know it, but.
yeah. I
And-
never understood
And
that. That's something I should probably admit.
mostly put into the
Do you?
into the
I don't.
MLS.
I just know it's never been a thing on anything
Right.
that I've bought or sold. So
I think it's probably
I-
somewhere on the auditor's
there's
side.
like, you know, let's be honest, there's a lot of stuff that comes up that is not necessarily a factor,
This
but it's in there.
This,
It's
you
just
know,
like-
put it in there that it has to be in there, and now
It-
it's gotten really strict that you have to put it in there.
There are some contracts. Real estate this contracting is not cut and dry in any shape or form. But you'll find we have a standard real estate board of contracts that we're all supposed to use.
Right.
But you will find that certain brokerages have modified that contract, which,
A
which
little bit.
probably by, obviously by an attorney, but they've made changes to the contract. So anytime we use a contract, we've got to look, are we using the standard contract? Are we looking at another brokerage's contract? Because there are things like, one of the things that I've noticed, and actually I noticed yesterday this possible discrepancy, is the sex offender registry. The standard contract says it's incumbent on the buyer to check the registry.
Right. But
There are brokerage
There is a
contracts
brokerage
that says it's
Yeah.
incumbent on the seller to notify. So
Yeah.
if you go into contract,
I never
Yeah.
did that.
Oh yeah. I'll tell you after.
You'll tell me later.
I'll tell you later.
I think
But
it's.
there is a
I don't think that it's like being derogatory, but I think it's HER's contract, right?
No,
It's not, or is it? Okay.
unless they changed it, but it was a different
It's one of the
brokerage
bigger
that I
brokerages.
read it in. It is one of the corporate brokerages, and
Which
you
is,
have-
it's nothing derogatory towards the brokerage. They just have made their own contract, and it is what it is, and you have to be aware of what you're signing.
Agencies
Like,
have made their own.
Yeah.
I don't know why we just don't all use
I-
the standard.
that's my opinion,
Contract.
but
well, because sometimes brokerages will put in that they want you to use their title company,
Oh,
that
yeah,
their-
and
or
there's
their
a
home
fee.
warranty.
There's a fee,
Yeah.
an admin fee,
Mhm.
and then they just hide it in there. and
see,
you're
I
fine.
think my personal opinion is we all should use the same contract, and there should be brokerages should be allowed to have addendums that supersede
Exactly.
contracts.
I agree with you
But
100%.
Yeah.
anyways, that's a whole
Anywho.
other discussion.
Look at that.
Yeah, it is.
That was
Talking
Pandora's
about
box, folks.
We're not talking about
Well,
anything.
but did you also know that in the residential property disclosure, and I just saw this yesterday for the first time that I really paid attention to it, is in the property disclosure it addresses the sex offender registry. So which
But like
is
how-
more important, the
How
contract
many
or what's in that
people-
residential
how
property
many people
disclosure?
know?
Because it says, so if in the instance that the brokerage
you-
contract that says it's incumbent on the seller to notify the buyer, in the property disclosure it says that it's up to the buyer to, it's public information, it says the
Yes.
same thing that's in our standard
Yes.
contract.
Okay.
So when you have the instance of standard or the modified contract by a brokerage and you have the RPD and both are signed, which one? Like, you've agreed to both.
Any
Which
attorneys
one is-
watching?
which one is
takes
right?
Any
precedence?
And honestly, I mean, I believe something has to say typically when you see a bank's addendum and a contract and they send you, so you go into contact with the bank, they send you their addendum and the addendum says anything in this addendum supersedes anything in the purchase contract.
Right.
There's nothing in any of these that says this supersedes this. So I think it's a big potential for, anyways, back to this person's question, there's probably an out. But once you get to a certain point, your outs are gone.
You're in a legal binding contract.
You are in a
Do not enter into a legal binding contract looking for outs.
Right.
You are buying a
Don't
house.
try to buy the house.
Yeah. If you're looking for an out, maybe buying a house isn't for you.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all.
I don't think that it means that
Don't
you really
enter
want the house.
Don't enter into a contract lightly.
Because
Read
the
and know what you're
contract.
getting into.
It is, yes.
And-
because there are lawsuits and you can get sued.
and that's
There
the
are.
biggest thing. And I
And
think
we're all going to get sued.
Yeah. Yeah.
you're gonna
You and us. Oh no, they bring you into it.
I don't want to get sued.
They're
Yeah,
gonna bring all of us
you know,
in. Like,
if you're the
they
thing of
make
it
pizza
is
and God look how good.
that I think we need to go for pizza. Maybe let's go to Pins and get to what's the food truck out there? Tacos.
I am hungry. Alright,
It's a cheat day.
let's wrap this up.
All right, wrap it up. Talk
Let's
about
tie a
nothing.
bow on it.
Let's
and
tie a
put
bow
her
on
to
it
bed.
because we could talk for
Oh
hours.
my God, and no one wants that.
Yeah.
Sure they do. We're entertaining.
I think
Brian,
so.
we are talking about contingencies next week. So tune in next week and we'll talk about
So
the
basically,
contingencies.
to sum your question up in a nutshell,
Yeah.
there are contingencies in every contract. Every one of the contingencies could be an out,
Yeah.
but you must follow the contract. You must
We
follow
are-
the dates.
we're-
Well,
And
the other thing I was going to add too, I think that the things that would worry you about a house, there are outs for in
Yeah,
the contract.
right.
Like if something came up in inspection, you weren't satisfied.
Mhm.
well, that's
you know,
number
so-
one.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
I
if
mean-
your financing went bad for whatever reason, I mean, but
in the inspection clause in the contract, it says if the buyer is not fully satisfied with the
Right.
condition of the property, there are basically three options.
Yeah.
One of which is buyer terminates the contract with notification of the seller prior to the end of the inspection
Yeah.
period, and the earnest money is returned to the buyer. Now, could the seller, and I've had this conversation with an attorney, could the seller dispute that this is someone just trying to get out of the contract, or is this a legit concern? I had an instance where they didn't even do an inspection, really used the inspection to get out, and said that there was a crack in the basement floor, and that was the reason. But they'd already told us the reason they wanted out was the wife just wasn't feeling it. Not legit. So
Yeah.
that was a huge mistake on the agent's part,
Yeah.
telling us that. So there
Right.
could have been an issue. What this all boils down to, the only one that wins in this when you sue is an attorney, because you're going to spend $150 to $200 plus an hour to litigate or to do whatever you're going to do. And trust me, I dated an attorney, and I'm not saying that there's not legit reasons to sue. In most cases, people sign a mutual release and
Right.
you go your separate
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
But
In
just
most
know if you're trying to get out for
Don't
less than a
enter
legit
in.
reason,
Yeah.
you could be sued.
I would just like to add that this video of pizza was very distracting today. This was maybe not a good idea. Next week is tacos and queso.
Oh
Yeah.
God, then we'll have to leave about 15 minutes in.
We're gonna go for tacos and queso. I'll bring you with.
And so
Yes. Ooh, we should go live
next
where
week
we go next.
contingencies and not odd, but just
I do think that's a good idea,
contingencies.
contingencies.
And then just so explain
We'll
what the
segue.
different contingencies are, and then what we're using in contracts to win. I think is a way
Yes.
to waive those contingencies.
I like that.
So,
Let's do it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to that.
and,
Cheers,
ta-
y'all.
and tacos and queso.
And tacos and queso
maybe
in the
we'll be
background.
eating and drinking, and we'll have Wednesday.
Margarita.
Wait, okay, so let me throw this out to you. I had another idea for video. We talked about it.
Uh-oh.
Wayne is going to be brought into
Oh,
it,
shoot.
and it's going to be called Tequila Tuesday. And what I was
That's going to be a
thinking,
mess.
well, hang on.
She's
You
like,
guys tell me if anyone's interested in seeing this. But we would tour local bars and their tequila selections.
Me and Jenny thought it was a really good idea.
You know what? Like Jenny said earlier, I work really hard to make people think I drink all day. So I'm in.
Alright, so maybe, I don't know when we're going to start Tequila Tuesday, but I thought it would be fun. So if there's any
What if
bar
we do
owners
3
watching,
T's? Tequila Taco Tuesday.
we are only touring
If they have
taco
tequila.
places
With tequila and
with
tacos.
tequila.
That are local.
Condados next Tuesday.
Tuesday at Condados. Yes. All right, everyone.
Peace
Have a
out.
wonderful week. You're so sweet.